Auzubillahiminash-shaytanir-rajeem. Bismillahir-rahmanir-rahim. Assalamualaikum. Ji ayanu. Pakhair agale. Ni hao. Chunashumme. Washwale. Ohio Gonzaimas. Guten Morgen. Hola. Bonjour. Privyet. Kaifa hal? Hale shuma chatore. Ahlan wasal. Marhaba. Buna. Mucho. Gracias. Swabri. Bhalli kare aaya. Hoş geldin and ayo sayo. Khuyamora. Chibato. Chi haljut. Kalimera. And a very warm welcome to everybody who's tuned into PTV World and are watching World this morning alongside my very well-learned colleague who happens to be Ms. Hajar Satti. I happen to be Shahzad Hassan Khan, and we hope and pray that everybody out there is doing wonderfully well and that you're ready to kickstart your day with us. But first things first, hello Hajra, Assalamu Alaikum. How are you doing today?
Walaikum Assalam. Thank you so much for introducing me, Shahzad. Since we don't have a teacups here, so I'm really missing it because I think that gives us a lot of dose of energy in the morning. But as I said before, that I'm not a very tea and coffee person, but I guess so. I think the tea is here, and tea sounds fantastic.
Bring in our tea, but we will certainly move on towards the tea. But ladies and gentlemen, while we say that we hope and pray that everybody is doing well, we certainly mean it from the core of our heart. You know, and it's because of the fact that we go out in 47 different countries, so we're not wishing it for the 47 countries. I think we're wishing for all the countries which exist over here on this globe, and we certainly want people to be healthier and wealthier with every passing day. Please make sure that you have a heart full of gratitude and that you're ready to chase your day and your dreams. But before, I think it's time now for the top stories. Let's go. Let's see what's happening.
True. So, talking to the country director of the World Bank, Najib Ben Hassane, in Islamabad, the Prime Minister appreciated the World Bank's role for the development of the backward areas, particularly remote parts of Balochistan. He said the World Bank has played its role in the relief and rehabilitation of the people affected by the unprecedented floods in 2022. He also emphasized the government will extend all possible administrative support for the early completion of rehabilitation work in the flood affected areas, and that's a wonderful development. And I think, Shahzad, I was following the developments that are happening, especially with the forum, the G20, and there's a lot of voices, and especially the Antonio Guterres, United Nations Secretary General, also voiced out that how there is a dire need to reform this Bretton Woods system, and in particular the World Bank, because obviously those realities under which the World Bank was formed reflected the realities of post-World War II, but they are not reflecting the realities of the 21st century. So it's time that we get a more reformed World Bank, which can really and truly help the developing countries, particularly when we talk about Pakistan.
If that's the purpose of its existence. So thank you so much, Hajra, for alluding to it so beautifully well. But now coming back to, hey, look, you've got your cup of tea on your table.
Yes, and tea sounds always fantastic in Pakistan. Shahzad, since you're a tea lover, I've seen you that you've always drink tea or coffee. Can you name how many types of teas are there?
Well, obviously there's green tea over here in Pakistan. We love it. You know, there are a lot of antioxidants in it. Not just that. Then there's pink tea. You know, and over here in Urdu, we famously you know, call it by the name of gulabi chai.
Not or just Kashmiri chai.
Or Kashmiri chai. You know, so there's Kashmiri tea as well. Then there's the normal tea that we have. You know,
right.
And I think that's it with my knowledge of tea. But why? You know, so there's one more thing which I want to talk about.
So do you think coffee falls under the category of tea?
No.
It's a separate entity.
Because that's caffeine, right? You know, so tea is different and coffee is different.
Tea also has a caffeine.
But a little amount of it.
I mean, coffee also has a dire amount of caffeine, but I mean, obviously, they both fall under the same category.
But coffee and tea are different. They might be both hot beverages, but you know, they certainly are very different. So please make sure that you do not confuse. But over here in Pakistan, there's a reason why we're talking about tea today. Over here in Pakistan, imagine that wherever you're going to go, everybody's going to ask you, cha pi lo. You know, so this is what we call, you know, please have some tea, have a cup of tea. So wherever, you know, so even if it's night time, even if it's daytime, even if it's morning, everybody's like, chai piyoge, please have a cup of tea. And everybody likes to drink tea. Not just that, you know, imagine that you know, it's so culturally ingrained in our system that even if somebody is going to go to see, you know, a probable wife for their son, what they decide on whether the girl is going to be a great bhabhi or bahu for them, what they do is that they make sure that, okay, you know, whether she can make good tea or a good cup of tea or not. And that's what our advertisements show us. And it has become a cultural thing ever since.
I mean, yes, but those norms are getting rediscussed a lot. But obviously, yes, this was the case before. But I think tea is not just a beverage, especially in the South Asian culture. It holds such a wholesome magnificence and such a wholesome manifestation in that particular beverage, because it is a tool for bonding. So especially there are evening teas where the entire family gathers together and they have a cup of tea and they're discussing their things, the entire normal routine, what is going on, what is not. And average Pakistani household, if you go there, they would not allow you to go out from their house without having a cup of tea, because that represents the norms of hospitality. And you will find the stark differences, especially if you go to European countries, because they don't offer you cup of tea. And then especially Pakistani, that person is not well versed with the norms of the European culture. He would find it extremely rude that, you know, no one offered the cup of tea in the first place.
And there's one more thing, and that is that I think it was somewhere around 2017 and 18 that I went to United States. And obviously, since we're tea lovers, every single day when we wake up, alhamdulillah, you know, we're like, okay, where's my cup of tea? So when I had my cup of tea over there in the United States, you know, it was so different that I certainly didn't want to have it. So wherever you are, you know, the tea will taste very differently. So imagine over here in Pakistan, it's different. You know, somewhere else geographically it's going to be different. But coming down to why we are even talking about tea today, there's this amazing thing that we did yesterday. So we were, ladies and gentlemen, very glad. Not just that, we were honored that we actually went to the residence of the Honorable Ambassador to Pakistan of Vietnam, and it was wonderful to see that how, because on the occasion of the 78th anniversary of the Socialist Republic of Vietnam, we were there, and what happened over there is something very interesting, and we wanted to share it with the world. So please go, let's take a look, and once you guys will come back, we have some amazing guests over here waiting to talk about cultural diplomacy. Let's do this.
It is bonding tool for expressing love in Pakistani filial setting. It is also a manifestation of our hospitality. Pakistani people wouldn't allow you to leave their place without drinking cup of tea. Same tea bond connects us with Vietnam. Lotus tea is extracted and submerged with dew, a perfect harmony with nature. It is then brewed to be served as green tea. Practical manifestation of it was shown by worthy ambassador of Vietnam assisted in serving it to the guests. Cultural diplomacy at the intersection of Lotus green tea revealed another interesting fact about Vietnamese culture. Vietnamese used to drink Lotus green tea because their soldiers had to fight masses. Tea would be eye-opener in literal sense and providing them strength. On this occasion, Ambassador of Vietnam to Pakistan said,
"And now we are facing the climate change. Vietnam and Pakistan, we share. I would like to share the Lotus, national flower of Vietnam, with all of you Pakistani people and citizens. I would like to share with all of you this green soybean cake, the stone sugar cover with a seed, with all of you, to share not only the tangible dishes, cuisine, but I would like to share with you all the spiritual, intangible value that Vietnam and Pakistan, Vietnamese and Pakistani, we had share, we continue to share, and we will share for the future."
Former Ambassador of Pakistan to Vietnam, Salahuddin Chaudhry, said,
"They say all that glitters is not gold. But I say all that glitters may not be gold, it can be a diamond. Lotus is an important flower, and it is like the gold, and the dew that falls on the lotus flower is like the diamond. You know why? Because it is transparent. It carries the strength. It carries the beauty. And that dew forms the very basic element of tea making of Vietnam. You know why? Because the dew falls into the flower and it crystallizes over a period of time.
Former diplomats, businessmen, citizens from all walks of lives and media persons were invited by His Excellency Ambassador of Vietnam in Pakistan. Participants appreciated the way of...
That's wonderful, and obviously it was a very interesting interaction and cross-pollination of ideas that we would like to say. And without any further ado, we would like to introduce a worthy guest who have graced a presence in our studio, and we would like to introduce them. So we are very glad that we have been joined by Ambassador Extraordinary Plenipotentiary of the Socialist Republic of Vietnam to Islamic Republic of Pakistan, His Excellency Nguyen Thieng Phong. Assalamu alaikum and welcome to our show.
Assalamu alaikum. Very good morning to everyone.
And thank you so much for joining us. It's wonderful to have you over here. And since we were at your residence yesterday, it's wonderful to host you today. I believe that we have enjoyed a cup of tea, and it's wonderful. We are really honored and we are really glad. And in addition to that, ladies and gentlemen, please do remember that it's PTV World at the forefront of making sure that we move ahead with cultural diplomacy. So may it be Germany, may it be Canada, may it be Ethiopia, may it be Vietnam. We've always made sure to have the spokespersons over here and to speak about culture diplomacy and how we can build upon relationships. But in addition to that, ladies and gentlemen, we're very lucky once again. He's been a regular on the show and it's always amazing to have him. Ladies and gentlemen, he happens to be former diplomat of Pakistan in Vietnam. He is Ambassador Salahuddin Chaudhry Sahab. Hello sir, Assalamu alaikum, good morning.
Walaikum assalam and good morning to you.
Thank you so much sir.
And thank you for having me with you.
It's an honor, sir. It's an honor.
So
And
whatever glitters is not gold, but it can be diamond. Huh? That was the line that everybody needs to listen to.
that's very true. And I think I was really fascinated by one of the aspects that stood out in the entire Lotus Tea diplomacy was that the use of the earthen pots there, right? Shahzad, so you and I have talked about countless time about how in our villages the earthen pots hold such an immense potential, and the taste that goes into making any food into that earthen pot is extremely different, and it's so yummy and it's so delicious and it's so healthy at so many levels that we're really fascinated
And we
by
still
how
have
much
it, we still have it at our household. You know, my mother is very keen
Yes,
of using
yes.
it as well. But very quickly,
Yes.
there's one thing which I wanted to ask the Excellency, and that is that on the occasion of the 78th anniversary of the Socialist Republic of Vietnam, you know, so the idea was to, you know, invite people, you know, make them get to know or give them more awareness about the Lotus Tea making and this culture diplomacy. So how, first of all, the importance and significance of the 78th anniversary, and then please let us know that, you know, how did you come up with this idea that, okay, the world needs to know about what Vietnam does with the Lotus Tea making?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Before answering your question, just put one question for two of you.
Sure.
Sure.
Are you fresh after seeing the cup of tea?
yeah.
You're really fresh.
So I believe that it will be much fresher after sipping some drop of tea.
Yeah, and it's green tea,
Yeah.
I must tell you.
So regarding the 78th anniversary of the National Day of Vietnam and the idea to combine with the tea culture of Vietnam, so we see that Vietnam, after 78 years, we have many things to do. We have to face with many difficulties, and altogether we have great success in social economic development. Together with that, we can see that why the question of the tea culture.
Yeah.
The first time when I got here 2 years ago, immediately after getting from the airport to the embassy, I found out that I was at home
Wonderful.
because I was offered with tea. And I found myself at home in Vietnam, not Islamabad, but in Hanoi, because we see that tea culture everywhere, not only in Vietnam, but also in Pakistan, also in all Asia countries.
Right.
And the idea of taking tea culture for the show and for the event is that Vietnam, from the past more than 4,000 years,
Wonderful.
defending, constructing, and building the countries. We have a lot of things. We had to do many things. But to be frankly speaking, it's being hardworking, being diligent to make the countries better. That's why tea is symbolizing that's all the essences and the characteristics of Vietnamese people and the nation.
Wonderful. And Ambassador Salahuddin Saab, since you were at the forefront of it and you spoke so passionately about the Lotus Tea making, and I find your words so inspiring about it, and you have an in-depth, I would say, you had an analysis and knowledge about the Vietnamese culture. So sir, let's talk about Vietnamese culture in the first place. And since the founding father of the Vietnam, Ho Chi Minh, during his 15-month imprisonment, he wrote a very interesting compilation of a book called Prison Diary. Would you like to shed some light on it and tell
You're
us about...
translating it in Urdu, I believe.
Yes,
Yeah.
Yes, we are going to.
go ahead, we all ears.
Okay, Hajra and Shehzad, before coming on to the prison diary, I would like to mention, like I mentioned yesterday at the embassy, you know, the dew, the morning dew as a diamond, all right? I'll tell you another element as the culture also as a diamond. Now, why? If you take life as a dot and you expand it, it becomes a circle.
Right.
Okay? And you as a human being, you start traversing or moving on that circle throughout your life, and you go by ups and downs. But there is one vehicle. The vehicle, I call it the vehicle of culture.
Right.
Because without culture, human connectivity or human relationship cannot develop, and you cannot develop yourself as a human being. Okay, so
Right.
that is the vehicle of culture. That vehicle I call the diamond for life.
Wow, and it's wonderful. And before you move on to, talk about the
Brief.
translation of the diary as well, there's one more thing, and I would want you to kind of, on behalf of Pakistan, congratulate the people of Vietnam, the Vietnamese people on the 78th anniversary as well. So please go ahead. What will be your message on behalf of entire Pakistan and our entire population?
Before I give the personal view, I will say one thing. When I was there, I loved Vietnam. When I was there, I loved the Vietnamese people. I loved the people, the governance, the ways of life, because they were the most simplest of all in the world that I saw. Wow. Very humble, very down to earth, believe me. Until today they are so. And this is part of culture. That's why, Shahzad, I think we need to look at these aspects of culture ourselves. Because without culture, you cannot change your mindset. You cannot develop the lifestyle that you want to do. Today, like the ambassador was saying, the connectivity, the solidarity, all that comes from where? And you, Hajira, you mentioned about earthen pot.
Yes.
You mentioned about, and I say it's a clay pot.
Okay.
But believe me, that is a philosophy.
Okay.
And beyond every tea making, a life cycle, whatever you say, in any country,
Right.
there is always a history, there is always a reason.
Okay.
And for Vietnam, why I got struck by their philosophy is that they related life and humanity to culture. And they related to not only that, culture and nature. And for nature, everything they did, all natural. Because with the clay.
All organic.
All organic, that's it.
Yeah.
You mentioned it. All organic. Why I'm emphasizing on that is because our Center for Cultural Diplomacy that we have developed, we're going to do a very soon a very important conference and art and culture exposition.
Wonderful.
It relates to nature. And I say you cannot relate to nature if you don't love nature.
Wow.
You have to love nature.
Exactly.
Really?
And thank you so much for wonderfully explaining it. But before, we come back to how you're translating Uncle Hal's poetry as well, I think there's one more thing. Because you didn't take us to Vietnam and you left us behind, we certainly want our audiences to go check out where Vietnam is and how beautiful it is. Let's go and let's take a good look at where Vietnam is. All right, I think that, when we speak of Vietnam, Haja, we really need to kind of speak about, because Ambassador Salahuddin has spoken and highlighted, how the people are always very humble. They always make sure that, that it's all going to be organic,
That's true.
they're healthier in
Connected
lifestyles.
with the nature, and there's a lot of focus nowadays, especially after the climate change, that how there is a need to revert back to the nature. But I think if we analyze our ancestors' way, and if we analyze that how our previous generations were doing things, they're very close to nature in the first place, right? So you will find the presence of earthen pots, not just in Vietnam, also in Pakistan too, and how they were very nature friendly in the first place, and how it is extracted from the morning dew, and the farmers have to wake up early in the
early morning lotuses,
yes, because obviously dew is present early in the morning, right? And obviously waking
Then it
up
takes
early in
2
the
to 3
morning.
days as well.
Of course. And it's synthesized and then it's brewed and then it's served to the guests. So it was an amazing experience watching how it does. So like Shahzad mentioned, why not take our audience to the Vietnam so they can experience the entirety of how the lotus tea is made in the first place, because the flower lotus is the national flower of the Vietnam in the first place, and it's very fascinating that how the national flowers hold such a significance, that too at the intersection of tea in the first place. So please take a look.
Located in Southeast Asia, Vietnam extends its territory along the east coast of the Indo-Chinese Peninsula. This tropical peninsula is home to an immense diversity of flora and fauna, which Vietnam shares with its neighbors of Cambodia, Laos, and China. But the uniqueness of Vietnam is linked to its relationship with water, perfectly represented by the legendary Mekong River and more than 2,000 miles of coast, as well as an incredible system of underground rivers. Are you ready to enjoy the wonders that await you in this tiny but incredible place? Here are the 10 best places to visit in Vietnam. Number 1. The Mekong River Delta. Let's start this tour through some of Vietnam's natural wonders. The Mekong River is the world's 8th longest river and goes through 5 countries before ending its course on Vietnam's far south. Number 2. The Phong Nha Ke Bang National Park. Moving on to our following location, the Phanya Kebang National Park will leave you speechless. A national park placed in the central northern region, this UNESCO World Heritage Site's main attraction consists of its cave systems that extend for an outstanding 126 kilometers. Number 3. Halong Bay. The most visited and popular place in Vietnam, also awarded as a UNESCO World Heritage Site, the Halong Bay is located at the northeast side of Vietnam, near Halong City. Its most distinctive feature is the large number of limestone karst islets emerging from the water, some of them home to fishermen villages from ancient times. Number 4. Hanoi, Old Quarter and French Quarter. Downtown Hanoi can be split into two broad zones, the Old Quarter and the French Quarter. The Old Quarter is a favorite for visitors because it portrays an original version of Hanoi. Number 5. Imperial Citadel of Thang Long. Welcome to the Imperial Citadel of Thang Long, Hanoi. Situated at the heart of Hanoi, the central sector of the Imperial Citadel of Thang Long is an outstanding place of interest not only for the capital city, but also for the country as a whole.
Wow, ladies and gentlemen, obviously these stunning images make us feel like as if we need to go for a vacation, and that's only to Vietnam.
That's true and wonderful. And let's talk about the history of Vietnam, because it is a country that has struggled a lot and that came a long, long way. And by the way, we were watching the images and the visuals that were coming. It was so fascinating. And we've also experienced the cultural diplomacy in the form of the tea yesterday. So let's start our conversation. So Ambassador Salahuddin Saab, like I alluded to before, you are well versed with the Vietnamese culture and history, and let's talk about the prison diary that you are translating in the Urdu. What is it about? Because the leaders who have been incarcerated in the jails, for example, like Nelson Mandela, they have such a strong emotive power in their words, and I'm really interested in how does the Vietnamese founder father has to say about his incarceration. In the
Right. You know, Hajra and Shahzad, diplomacy has been their history for a very, very long time.
True.
There has been the political diplomacy in the early days.
True.
It was later on turned into economic diplomacy for reasons, obvious reasons of trade and commerce and other things as well, survival. But gradually came another concept of public diplomacy. Yes. Why diplomacy only for diplomat to diplomat? No, or to government to government. Why not with the public interaction? Right. Then a period came, and it is, I say hats off to Ho Chi Minh, the founding father of the nation of Vietnam. And he was very fond, he was revered, respected for his knowledge, for his intellect, and he was revered as and also as a loving person. That's what they called him, Uncle Ho.
Oh, wonderful.
Okay, Uncle Ho. The entire nation called, till today, Uncle Ho is called. Now, this gentleman, you know, when he was incarcerated in the jail for good 14 months.
Okay.
He thought about many, many things. And then he thought of doing something to spend his time. And he thought of poetry, although he was not very keen on poetry in the beginning. But later he became very keen on that. But he said, what is the basis of that poetry writing?
Right.
It's culture. And he wanted to tell the world what I felt within the four walls of the prison, and I felt how I longed for the people in the world, how I felt for my people in Vietnam, how they were struggling, they were fighting the colonies and so on and so forth. So he tried to feel it. Then he said, okay, let's bring about another phrase called cultural diplomacy.
Wow.
This is fantastic. Now, the cultural diplomacy was a basis, and this he thought for another very good reason. He believed in another philosophy. You see, love all, hate none. Today is so important. Love all and hate nobody. That's what the philosophy of Vietnam is. Malice to none and friendship to all.
My wife doesn't allow that.
Love all, hate true, in a way. Yeah. But you have to convince them, even the wives. Okay? So he thought, I would have, even if there are enemies who we have to fight, they were fighting for a long time. And you know the names of the countries. I would not like to mention them. But he said, I fight the enemy, Ho Chi Minh was saying, I fight the enemies, or we fight the enemies as enemies, not as human beings. Once the animosity is gone, the war is over, we are friends again. Today, they believe in the same concept. Now, in that context, the Prison Diary, the book, is about 78 poems that he wrote. Very small ones, like ballads, small poems. But the inherent quality of each and every poetry was, he talked about human beings. He talked about himself less, but he compared to one thing. He said, although I'm inside here, I'm suffering the agony of being within the four walls, but I see through my window at the outside world. There are blossoms, there are flowers, there are birds chirping. You know, everything is happening. That is normal. And although I long for that, but I wish for that. And I will one day come out and enjoy, along with my people, the same kind of a human connectivity. This is beautiful. So this is Prison Diary.
Yeah.
All right?
May I add?
Sure. Please jump in.
I will mention a couplet from there.
Sure.
Thank you so much, Excellency Salahuddin. So talking about Uncle Ho, late President Ho Chi Minh, we can talk long time.
Yeah.
Right.
But regarding the Prison Diary, actually it is diary in prison.
Yeah.
Okay.
And maybe you have not known that Uncle Ho, he can write 11 or 12 languages
Wonderful.
fluently.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
And can understand more than 30 languages.
That's amazing.
But the thing is that diary in prison or prison diary, he wrote it in Chinese.
Oh, wonderful.
In Chinese.
Oh, wonderful.
Yes, because he's very fluent in Chinese,
Okay.
speaking, writing, listening, everything. And during 13 months in prison
Right.
by Kuomintang, you see Kuomintang is National Party of China of the Chia Shek-kang. They imprisoned Uncle Ho for 13 months and he wrote 133 poems. And remember that at that time, from the August of 1942 to the September 1943,
Yes.
and 1945, he declared the independence of Vietnam on the trip to China, and then he was arrested. The second I would like to emphasize here, agree with you, Excellency, completely, absolutely. The philosophy and the thinking, the thought of Ho Chi Minh or Uncle Ho is very optimism.
Okay.
You remember the
Positive.
poem
Positive,
named The Sunset?
Yes.
The Sunset. He was imprisoned inside with the bar, but it's connectivity, not only nation to nation, people to people, country to countries, but he himself connected his soul and his own body. That means the body imprisoned inside, but his spirit, his soul for liberalization of the countries, of the people of Vietnam outside, and very optimistic about the cause of liberalizing the countries.
And sure, please, Ambassador
It's
Sam.
connectivity.
Right. Go ahead and please read the
Yes.
couplet.
Please connect.
I will connect. Exactly. That's important
Yeah,
thing.
connect. Yeah, connected.
You know, the prison diary, like very well explained by Ambassador Hong, another element is that whatever he wrote from his heart. And he related to the humanity outside his prisons. Okay, the prison diary, the book. Before I come on to the little 4 lines that I will recite for you and explain why it's been written that way, I'd like to mention that for the last couple of years, our even the predecessors of Ambassador Hong, we were toying with the idea of doing a translation of that particular book. I read it through, and I was very impressed. And of course, we have approached the Pakistan Academy of Letters, and the Vietnamese government is at it. And God willing, it will be translation has been done.
Wow.
Wonderful.
Only the printing remains to be done. Okay.
Wonderful.
Now we hope once it is done, we can reciprocate by trying and introducing our very famous poem, Socialist poet, who? Faiz Ahmed Faiz.
Wow.
Okay.
Yeah.
And he got a Lenin Prize, by the way, on his poetry.
Yes, in
So we
Russia.
have a plan. After doing the prison diary, we'll do also one of the books of Faiz Ahmed Faiz, to be on the same wavelength.
Yeah, and that's what we call cultural diplomacy.
Cultural diplomacy, exactly that. Very good, well done. Okay, the prison diary, now I'll quote 4 lines.
Sure.
It says, stubborn and persevering, rather stubborn and persevering, I have not yielded an inch. He's in the prison. Stubborn and persevering, I have not yielded an inch. Physically, I am suffering. Physically, I am suffering, but my spirit will never flinch. My God, look at this spirit. That's something like Mandela. Remember Mandela was 37 years in the prison. And he was in the 14 months, fantastic.
And sir, it's always towering personalities like these, you know, who are actually full of empathy, you know, who made these connections with people, made sure people are going to come together, you know, that fight for freedom.
Absolutely.
And that's exactly one thing which I wanted to talk about. So, Your Excellency, I'll come down to you. Very sorry, Hajra.
Sure.
But in recent times, because, you know, I've seen a very recent example of one of my friends, you know, so that's the time when I got to know about Vietnam and how progressive you are now. So, you know, so when we talk about the Socialist Republic of Vietnam, what happens is that you've emerged on the forefront. You know, the world is talking about you. So, you know, when we talk about policy making, when we talk about governance, when we talk about, you know, relations with other countries, how do you think that Vietnam was able to do that, and that too so amazingly?
Thank you. Let me tell you that Vietnam has been talked about for more than 1 century.
Exactly.
Since the 1858, when the French people came to Vietnam. True. Under the colonialism. And the world talk about Vietnam in 1945, when Uncle Ho declared the Vietnam independence.
True.
And the world talk about Vietnam in 1954, when the first time the colonized countries, like you see some countries in Africa, Asia, Southeast Asian, stood up and defeat colonialism, French people, in 1954 in Dien Bien Phu Hill. And the world talk about Vietnam, 1975, when we reunified the countries. We defeated America, and also the last soldier of America left Vietnam in 1973. But then still America supported or backed government of in the south of Vietnam. So we reunified the countries. And then the world talk about Vietnam in 1986, when the party, Socialist Party of Vietnam, decided to change the countries from the centrally planned economy to the market-oriented economy, but with socialism orientation.
True. That's true.
And the world talk about Vietnam when we became the 3rd biggest exporter of rice after 3 years. From 1986, I did not have enough food to eat. I had to eat chapati. I had to eat chapati. I know about chapati and naan when I was 7 or 8.
Wow. Oh, wonderful.
Because every morning, let me tell you that at that time we did not have enough food to eat, even rice. And we had to eat chapati, the flour, with the support from the French countries. And every morning, my mom, you see, fry some chapati with some grease and give it to me.
That's
and I go to school like a paratha now,
Yeah,
but never without egg, no egg.
Okay.
No egg, just paratha with a little sugar. But then after 3 years, we became the 3rd largest rice exporter.
Wonderful.
And once again, the world talk about Vietnam in 1995,
Right.
when we normalized our relation with America, we
Right.
joined ASEAN.
Right.
And the world talk about Vietnam in 1992, when we normalized our relation with China. And the world talk about Vietnam now, recently, with a total export of import, 730 billion USD. The world talk about Vietnam-China trade volume, 175 billion USD. The world talk about Vietnam and America, the bilateral trade between Vietnam and America, 120 billion USD. And the whole world talk about Vietnam just yesterday, when the President Joe Biden of America visit and Vietnam, and we elevated our relation to the comprehensive strategic partnership for peace, cooperation, and sustainable development. Wow. But
that's
last
the
but
bit.
not least, all the thing, the world talk about Vietnam,
Right.
doesn't mean talk about the Uncle Ho. We talk about culture, we can talk about Uncle Ho. We talk about Uncle Ho, that's when you see the culture, diplomacy. And just one sentence, just one just want to share with you that.
Sure, sure.
Because Excellency Salahuddin talked about the diary in prison. In 1923, when Uncle Ho, that time he was very young,
Right.
first he went to Moscow
Right.
and he found out that Marxist-Leninist communism.
Right.
And he found out the way to liberalize Vietnam.
Wonderful.
At that time, he got an interview with the Soviet journalist.
Right.
And after the interview, the journalist said that when I Quốc, that name of Uncle Ho, I Quốc, that means love the countries.
Right.
Nguyen is family name. So his name at that time is Nguyen Ai Quốc. And the journalist, after the interview, he said that Nguyen Ai Quốc breathes not only the culture of the any European countries.
Right.
He breathes the culture of the world and the culture of the future.
Right.
In 1923, and after 20 years, diary in prison.
Yeah.
And now, 2023, 100 years, this still the statement of the journalists from Soviet Union still
Right.
true. That means when I quote Uncle Ho is culture, and culture is Uncle Ho. We can talk about
Wow.
Uncle Ho later on.
Exactly.
Right.
And in addition to that, very sorry, sir, but there's one thing which I wanted to ask, because we were talking about policy making and how the economy has emerged, and you've taken us through the years from where, because it was certainly a struggle for the people of Vietnam, until they had that freedom and when they enjoyed it. So now we see the economy booming. Now we see a lot of tourism.
May I share a little bit, 1-2 points?
Just one more thing.
Yeah. First is centralized
Yes.
economy to the market-oriented economy. Second thing, that's we have to liberalize the production force.
Okay.
And the third one, we have to attract the FDI, because you cannot reinvest without the capital.
True.
Yeah, and we got the FDI, and together with FDI, we have export to get the foreign currency. So FDI and export is two crucial
tools, yes.
and core key for Vietnam economic development and sustainable.
Wow, thank you so much for alluding to that. One more thing which I would want to ask you over here, and that is that while I was doing my research, please correct me if I'm wrong, but what I got to know was that there's a single party system in Vietnam. That's
Yes,
true, right?
yes.
And this is a system which is unknown to us, because we have multiple parties over here, there are different agendas and whatnot. So do you think that there comes a time with the people of Vietnam where they're like, okay, why not have more parties now?
Yeah.
I mean, we do see that with single party system, what happens is that there's more cohesion,
Yes.
there's more unity, people have one leader, they follow with their vision, and you've certainly seen a lot of success with that vision of that single party system.
And there's more political participation in the grassroots, especially when we see the Chinese model, and I think Vietnam can allude to that, but please go ahead.
Just want to share with you, I want to repeat 1923,
Yes.
when Uncle Ho first came to Moscow and he found out the communism. He said that the way to liberalize the countries is communism.
Wonderful.
Until now, after 100 years. So you see that before 1945, okay, if we follow, there were many parties in Vietnam before 1945.
Okay.
But in 1930, Uncle Ho created Vietnam Communist Party. So Vietnam Communist Party is the force who can mobilize a whole nation, all the people.
Wonderful.
I want to share with you that even before, that's many parties, but no party took the lead, can help the people, and they failed many times.
Right.
So after that, Uncle Ho created the Vietnamese Communist Party with the utmost target to liberate the countries. We need to have the independence, and then we have the freedom. Uncle Ho said that we can do anything, even to sacrifice our life. We never accept to be slave. We never accept to be the person, to be the people without freedom. So first independence, and then socialism. So during the long time of the Communist Party and also the Vietnam modern time, we have the harmonization of the independence and socialism. And also for the economics, now we can see that we have the China, our friend, our neighbor, we have the same system. But China and Vietnam always went on the top of the economic growth.
True.
Because whatever happened, we can level up the standard of the people. People enjoy. Me, myself, I did not have enough food to eat. But now, the people, you see, GDP of people in Vietnam is very high. People enjoy.
Wonderful.
So they will have their own votes. It doesn't mean that we do not have democracy.
Okay.
What kind of democracy with the multiple party if the citizen, the countries, and also the people are still suffering?
That's true.
That's true.
Suffering with high inflation, with the corruption, with the bureaucracy, and without the freedom.
Wonderful.
Without your own independence in policy planning and policy implementation. So, the Communist Party of Vietnam that we follow, and the socialism in economic development, let me share with you that. We have the big result of economic growth, but the way we divide it, we distribute it, it's different. It's socialist orientation. It doesn't mean that you have more capital invest in and you have more benefit. No, you are richer. You have to pay more tax.
Really?
Yeah,
That's what-
to redistribute
That's true.
the
That's
wealth of the economy.
And that's how the circulation of wealth goes on. But Ambassador Salahuddin, now coming to you, since you have served in Vietnam and you're very well versed with the culture of Vietnam, so what are some of the similarities that you see between Pakistani culture and Vietnamese culture? And I was going through your profile, which is very impressive, mashallah, and you have lots of feathers in the cap, and you are also well versed with the concept of Sufism, right? And it talks about, you know, how we need to revert back inside, connect with the higher love, and if you see the
That
South
connection
Asian,
you were talking about.
Yes,
Yes,
and if you
yes,
see the South Asian cultures, you will find that there's a lot of philosophy of Confucianism that reigns there, meditation and connection with the nature and aligning yourself, synthesizing yourself with the nature. So what are some of the similarities that you find in our culture and Vietnamese culture?
You said it so well, Hajra. You know, spirituality,
True.
or what they say in English language and literature, mysticism.
Mysticism.
Okay, and Sufi or Sufism is that particular spirituality or mysticism. That being the basis, believe me, you find so much of similarity between the people of Vietnam per se,
That's
a lot of people in the whole of East Asia and Pakistan, all right? And because we believe also in the same spirituality. And we have gone along, Sufi and Kalam, literature, writing, so many things have happened.
Right.
And people are so ingrained into that, right?
Yes.
It's wonderful. Now, here I would like to mention another thing, adding to what the Ambassador Hong has said. You know, at one time when I visited for the first time the Hanoi, I was told by the foreign minister, the then foreign minister, they wanted to join South Asia, or the South Asian, association,
Okay, wonderful.
SARC, SARCC, South Asian Association for Regional Cooperation.
Yes, yes.
And at that, it was just beginning. The SARC was just in the formative. I was part of it at one time.
Wonderful, wonderful.
The foreign minister said that, and I sent, of course, the request of the foreign minister to our government. But over a period of time, Vietnam came out probably of that particular, standing, and then the ASEAN concept got introduced. And Vietnam being a part of the East Asia, alongside other countries, they felt probably better later and joined the ASEAN. And now, why said that? Today, Vietnam is one of the primary giant of the ASEAN grouping.
Wow.
And ASEAN, they have got 11 countries.
Now 11, including Timor-Leste.
Yeah, so the 11 members. And ASEAN has done fantastic work. And we will, God willing, one day we'll have some program regarding ASEAN by itself, all the other composite elements. But having said this, the spirituality or the mysticism or the Sufism remains almost the same all over these nations. It's fantastic.
And if you see the Western discourse, they're now reverting back
Yes.
to Sufism and Confucianism, and you would see that there's a lot of, because their wellness models are collapsing, materialism, materialistically they are progressing a lot, but spirituality, connection with the nature, connecting with the higher love, this is something that is very innate to us as a human.
And Hajra, shall I add one line?
Right.
To this, I remember, and I'll tell you, very famous English poet called Thomas Hardy mentioned about 2 centuries ago, let's return to nature.
Exactly, and that's exactly what we are going to do, ladies and gentlemen. Right at the beginning, we told you and we promised you that we will share the technique of how the lotus tea is being made, which is why now let's connect with the nature. Go ahead.
Yes,
Good
yes,
luck.
yes.
Chin Thailand has made lotus flower tea for 10 years. Lotus are different colors suffuse her house in every lotus blooming season. Lan, who loves the purity and gentle beauty of lotus, at first made lotus tea as gifts for her friends and relatives. After tea won the taste of the recipients and became popular among locals, she decided to make more tea to serve customers' demand. The selection of lotus requires great care to make the best tea. Wild lotus flowers are easy to grow and can be found anywhere. Taiho artisans only use lotus blooms in Ho Tây since they have a distinctive fragrance.
We always choose Saint Baxiet, sacred lotus, or Nurumbo momobotan, planted in Ho Tây to make lotus tea, as their fragrance is much more excellent than those grown in other ponds.
The lotus used to make the tea must be picked in the early morning when the dew remains heavy in order to ensure the tea's freshness. After that, the anther is quickly separated from the flower before it withers and loses its fragrance.
Signature Thai green tea is my best selection for lotus tea making because it complements the lotus fragrance.
All right, so as promised, ladies and gentlemen, we made sure that that you go ahead, try yourselves, how to make the lotus tea. It's a Vietnamese thing. Please make sure that you do that. But Ambassador Salahuddin, thank you so much for being with us. Lovely to be in conversation with you. And Your Excellency, towards the end, I would want you to kind of give away a message for the people of Pakistan, for PTV World, and for everybody who's watching you.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Excellency, for giving me a chance to be here with PTV today. I feel that I am at home with a Pakistani friend that I treasure so much. And also with the cultural diplomacy, we have the tea cup here. Even I have not yet sipped, but I believe that tea culture and together with many, many things will be the connectivity device between Vietnam and Pakistan, between Vietnamese and Pakistani. We are brothers for more than 50 years. I know that Pakistani diplomat, Excellency Tariq Osman Haider, who came to Hanoi to set up the Pakistan's embassy in Hanoi 50 years ago, 1973. At that time, we was in very difficulty situation. So we believe that some friend who came to you during your difficulties, that means you're truly friends.
True.
And I would like to send a message that Vietnam and Pakistan, Vietnamese people and Pakistani people, we have been very, very good friends, brother, and now we have to share with each other, we have to help each other to get over any difficulties. We go together and then we go very far.
And which is why, thank you so much for such a wonderful message. And certainly you are our brother, Vietnamese people are our people, and we certainly feel like home when we think about Vietnam. But one last thing, and that is that whenever you're going to go to any tea shop or a coffee shop, there's only one thing now you need to say, and that is Puttar chaal hai kya malai maar ke. All right. And we certainly, he will be really happy to do that. But thank you so much, Excellencies, for being with us. Lovely to be in conversation with you, and may this relationship build up for the next hundreds and hundreds of centuries. But for everybody who's out there, we were actually talking about PTV and how PTV World has always contributed. It's always a teamwork. And unfortunately, there's a sad news which just came in that one of our most senior cameramen, Mr. Shuraj Durrani, who actually went for his liver transplant, unfortunately passed away today. So may his soul rest in peace. Inna lillahi wa inna ilaihi rajoon. And for everybody who's out there, for all the viewers of PTV World, please make sure that you remember him in your prayers, his family, patience for the bereaved, and in general, the entire team, the entirety of PTV World and Pakistan Television Corporation.
Right, and with that, we would like to, on a very sad note, end up our segment and say bid you farewell. So until next time, it's a goodbye. Allah Hafiz.